Jerry and Charlie riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your fans. Now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Shea Station.
Today is Friday, May 2nd. It's your 218th episode of Shea Station. It was a frustrating week of Mets baseball. Why? Because they didn't win every game. They went 3-4. How dare they? We're going to talk all about it. The Mets played a weird 4-game set in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Then they came home and they dropped their first home series of the year to the Arizona Diamondbacks. A lot of key moments, a lot of roster moves along the way, and guess what? There's not even an off day today because the Mets head to St. Louis and start a series tonight. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jackie K. Jolly. Joining me from Ohio is Jerry Blevins. Jerry, how you doing?
How do you know I'm in Ohio?
That's true. You could be in just, a set that just looks like your office. That's very true.
This is it's a digital background that I just,
You're not a very convincing liar at all. I'm not going to lie.
No, I know.
I can see it in your eyes.
I'm lovely, man. It is. You nailed it, though. Like, I'm doing great, but the team showed some vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen.
It sure is, and they felt indestructible for such a long time. Entering this, 7-game stretch that we're going to talk about, they were on a 7-game heater. They swept a division rival in fairly convincing fashion, and you can point to both losses in D.C. as games they should have won. You can point to both losses in this Diamondback series as games they had a chance to come back in and steal at the end, and in the end, they go 0-4 in those. Luckily, they only lose a game on their record, technically going 3-4. It's just, I think, frustrating because of how close these games were. And, when you talk about end-of-year standings and who makes the cut and all these things, a lot of it comes down to these one-run games that you'd love to have each and every one. The Mets had so many of them last year, and they will get more moving forward. They're only 7-5 in one-run games this year after all, too. So we'll start in D.C. with this, and we got some April awards we want to give out later. We'll go over all the roster moves and all that good stuff, but it's good to start at the beginning because this whole week got off to a really weird start with this 5-4 loss in D.C. It all started with that controversial triple play call, which I am still thinking about, and as soon as it happened, I was like, I can't believe I'm not going to get Jerry's thoughts on this until 7 days from now. Just off the cuff, how does that happen? How does that happen in a Major League Baseball game? I couldn't believe it.
It happens because nobody, like the umpire that was counted on to see it at second base, didn't see it. He thought he did. It's a tough angle. They get together. Nobody really had it. And then this is one of the frustrating parts for me is that it's not reviewable.
Right.
There shouldn't be any plays anymore that aren't reviewable. So that's the frustrating for me. There's no, because it happens in front of the umpires looking that way, when replay was first started to be brought in, the umpires had major pushback with the union and with MLB because they didn't want to be made to look bad and made irrelevant. All these things. Understandable at the time. Technology wasn't great. The replays took forever. Everything should be reviewable because you want to get the calls right. Most of the time, these guys get the calls right. Now it's time for the next evolution of plays in front of you. Jimmy had a great breakdown. What would they have done?
Right.
Where would they have put the runners? They would have been an out somewhere. Who knows what they would have done? But I'm over the fact that we can't review every play because you need to be we have camera angles to get the plays right. Ultimately, you got to get the play right. It's not the reason why the Mets lost that game, but it definitely didn't help them.
I'd say it contributed heavily, but I wouldn't say it's the sole. You can't point to that and say that's the reason they lost. And it does come down to that. It's the circumstances of, okay, if we do overturn this, how many outs do we give the Nationals? How many do you think we would have gotten? Where did we place the runners in the end? Who's actually on first base? So it's a whole mess, but also we're getting to the point where, next year balls and strikes are going to be reviewed. So, that part of the game is evolving. And
that ball clearly bounced. And you could see it live.
Yes.
The angles that the Mets bench has is like, what the heck? What's going on? How are they going to get this wrong? you would expect, 4 umpires to be able to get together and be like, yeah, the ball bounced. They did it, and you need to be able to review it, and they'll figure it out moving forward. You're right. Balls and strikes coming in next year. Little tap on the head. You got to be able to review this. So just get the calls right. That's it.
A blown game-changing call like that, Jerry, you know what it makes me want to do? It makes me want to drink. It makes me want to drink Field of Dreams Whiskey, our presenting sponsor, as always. Shout out you guys for restocking the online store. I just cracked open one of my 2 bottles. I promise I don't have a problem, guys. I just really enjoy the product because it's whiskey from the most famous cornfield in the world, brought to you by former major leaguers, including Mets legend Jerry Blevins, amongst some others. They have 2 whiskeys currently available, this Field of Dreams Small Batch Bourbon and the Field of Dreams Player Series Bourbon. If you don't know about this product, we are trying to pump it up as much as we can on Shea Station. Check out the link in the description below, drinkfieldofdreams.com/Shea. The link is live right now. Take advantage of the stock they have because who knows, it could go quick, and it makes for a perfect Father's Day present. If you want to just get ahead of that, get that done. Don't even have to think about it as the date approaches. This is the thing you want to buy for your dad, and maybe some Mets tickets as well. So shout out Field of Dreams. Anything you want to plug there?
Drink responsibly. Drinkfieldofdreams.com. It is a great it's a great Father's Day present. I usually get emails from the company about got this for my dad, blown away, because it's still an unknown product for the most part.
Sure.
It makes people that might not understand what it is blown away, and we're proud of it. So enjoy. Thank you for this infomercial brought to you by Jolly Olive.
So that was to lighten the mood a little bit because it was an otherwise very frustrating game and series in DC. Kodai Senga had another quality start, 6 innings, 2 earned runs. He did have his scoreless streak snapped at 20 1/3 innings. Again, I mean, this start was definitely better than his Arizona start, but the whole first month of Kodai Senga, it's the reason why you watch the games and not the box score, because he ends April with a 1.38 ERA, which is good, but I don't know. I think me and you have kind of been on the same page of he just hasn't looked quite right. He hasn't looked like he's been in full command of most of his arsenal. Kind of from start to start, it looks like he has 1 pitch going at a time, but he gets through 6 here. The problem is that the opposing starting pitcher was Jake Irvin, who just kind of feasts off the Mets and then, pitches okay against every other team. He has another marvelous start aided by that triple play, 7 1/3, 1 earned run allowed. This looked like a Mets game that they were just kind of dead in the water. They looked tired, first road game. Maybe they missed the home crowd. All of a sudden, down 3-0 in the 8th, Dylan Cruz makes a young ball player's mistake, going for the highlight reel diving play on a Mark Vientos bloop, skips by him with the bases loaded. The Mets rally back from down 3 to go ahead 4-3 with a bases clearing triple, but for the first time pretty much all season, and what became a week defined by this, the bullpen showed some cracks in the armor. It was Ryan Stanek and AJ Minter that couldn't shut the door. A couple weird defensive miscues. Juan Soto misplays a ball in right field. The walk-off single by James Wood that ends it kind of just kicks off Jeff McNeil's shoe. It was a ball he could have dove for or let through, and that walk-off might not happen. Instead, it takes the perfect little carom, falls into no man's land. CJ Abrams was running on the play, and he scores from first. So the Mets lose 5-4 in a game that felt like they could have won at any point, but also felt like they didn't deserve to win. It was one of these weird losses where you're frustrated, but you understand why your team lost.
Yeah, that's it. Frustrated, but you see the result is what it is. Jake Irvin has the Mets number.
I don't know what it is, man.
He looks great. It's not like the Mets are, they look terrible against him. He just really does look great. And then it's inevitable. The bullpen is going to crack. They can't be perfect the entire season. It's simply as that. Kodai has been unbelievable. He's been so good. And I don't want to be the one to rain on his parade. I'm not trying to do that. I think he's really coming along. I think the results are spectacular for, he's just a little bit inconsistent on execution. So his forkball doesn't quite have the same movement profile. His fastball doesn't quite have that same zip on it that it does. He's super close. The results from him not being at 100%, considering how much time off, couldn't ask for better results.
Absolutely.
Coming out of it. He just has another gear, and I can't wait to see him just look like himself. The strikeout totals are the number one easy sign that I can help people point to. The dude strikes out the world when he's locked in,
Right.
and he's just not getting those strikeouts. I mean, if this is his results all the time, I think he would take the lack of strikeouts. But I feel like, maybe his style of pitching is more on the swing and miss stuff, finishing guys off. But he's been spectacular. Not a complaint, just pointing out the fact that he's not missing the bats the way he did in 23. That's the only
Yeah,
thing
I
wanted
think
to
it could
say.
be. It's an optimistic point of view. Also, if he
Correct.
gets this first month under him, the Mets have jumped through hoops to make sure he gets that extra day of rest. I think it is going a long way. But yeah, if I told you at the end of the first month Griffin Canning has a higher K per nine than Kodai Senga, you'd say, "Oh, how bad has Senga been?" No, it's just he's been solid, just not striking out the world. In fact, he's got the lowest K per nine of the entire rotation right now. Tyler McGill has that crown. Number 2 on that list is Clay Holmes, who pitched game 2 of this series, had to deal with a weird rain delay in the first inning. I thought we were royally screwed. I thought it was going to be the end of Holmes' day after 1 inning. He comes back out. He still throws 70 pitches and gives us 5 shutout innings. Francisco Alvarez reannounces his presence by coming back to the lineup with a 2-run homer. That would be all the Mets needed, as the bullpen has a bounce-back day with 4 shutout innings. The Mets get their 5th shutout of the season already, and the Mets rotation, a streak that would end the very next game, but they extended their streak of 14 games without allowing a home run. We've been seeing that a little bit more in the recent games against the Diamondbacks that we'll get into, but again, these Mets pitchers have been so adept at keeping the ball in the ballpark. It's been winning them games, but it didn't happen so much in Game 3, which is, I think, the biggest game of the series. It was a series split, so you take that to the end at the end of the day, but this game was the first time I had felt like the Mets did something, and I hate the term Metsy, but Jake has kind of ingrained in my brain. This was a Metsy loss, Game 3. It was brutal.
It was Metsy. That's, by the way, that's the beauty of Jake. He's unbelievable at his job, but as a Metsy as a Getsy, this was like a throwback Mets loss.
I thought, I'm not to say that, you're ever past these kinds of losses. Any team's capable of losing a game like this, but for it to happen in DC, for it to be the bullpen, for it to be a 6-run lead late, it felt like deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra would say. The Mets jumped all over Mitchell Parker, who was kind of the breakout star of the Nats rotation, not so much Jake Irvin. Mitchell Parker was having this really nice start to the season. The Mets make him throw 50 pitches in the first inning. He gives up 5 runs. It was just pure, great at-bat after at-bat. 4 walks, 2 singles. They made him throw so many pitches. Nothing was bid on outside of the zone. Just really good at-bats up and down. Luis Angel Acuna had a really good at-bat in this one as well. They're up 5-0 early. Tyler McGill looks great. His final line is 6 1/3 and 3 runs, but, he was sparkling for most of that. Again, the box score, better than his line. I think the box score, again, did him a disservice. The Mets tried to get him through that 7th inning, which is why his line ends up where it is. But 9 strikeouts to 1 walk, just the Dylan Cruz home run allowed by him. That was the first home run allowed by a Mets starting pitcher since April 11th, so nearly a 3-week stretch there. So they're up 7-1 in the 7th inning, and then it begins. Tyler McGill leaves a couple runners on. Jose Butto comes in. He's been a storyline early in the season. Can Jose Butto pitch with runners on, or can he only pitch at the beginning of an inning? Is he only a clean inning guy? Inherited runners have been a massive problem for him. He lets a couple in, and then the 3-run homer to Nats backup catcher Riley Adams with just his 4th hit of the year. I posted some numbers on Riley Adams against the Mets in his career. Certified Mets killer. Pitch around from now on. His 3-run homer makes it a 1-run game. I thought the game was toast in the 8th when Huascar Brasman, who has been so good, loaded up the bases, but he escapes. Instead, it's Ryan Stanek who has his worst week as a Met. Another blown save opportunity. Such a deflating ending with this errant throw by Pete Alonso to let in the final run. Stanek blows back-to-back saves. He hadn't done that in 6 years since his time with the Miami Marlins. The Mets lose a crushing game, 8-7, a game they led 7-1.
Yeah, I think the fact that they fought back, like they had a huge lead, and then they did something they haven't done all year, which is just kind of like take their foot off the gas pedal.
Yeah.
Then the bullpen like was full implosion. Um, I think Budo was a little bit on the hot seat before, like, spoiler alert, but there's been a lot of injuries to
Yeah.
the bullpen. I think Budo is secure in his spot for now, but he was on the hot seat because everybody else was performing really well. Danny Young was starting to like look the part, throw early strikes.
Yeah.
Like I literally wrote notes down, like talking about how Danny Young was coming into his own and being aggressive in the strike zone. Um, but then Stanek, yes, this is part of what you get with Ryan Stanek, and it's part of we saw it last year. Hot streaks of domination and then, struggles. And that's he rides that a little bit. When you have that kind of electric stuff, it just came at an inopportune time. And he's been put into these big situations deservedly because he's earned it, and it just didn't work out. Bratsavan did a great job of getting out of a huge situation. The momentum felt like this is why it hurt so much because the emotional swings of that game, jump out, lose the lead, come back, lose the lead, like escape a jam, and then like for it to end the way it did, it was more heartbreaking than, again, if you're watching the game, it feels heavier than it does when you just look back on it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the discourse in this episode will be about the bullpen, but that's because they set a very high standard for themselves. They were cleaning up games once we got to like the sixth inning. But you can also blame this one on the offense, like you said, taking their foot off the gas pedal. I mean, the Nats bullpen entered this series with the worst ERA in baseball, and in these first three games, they go 10 and 2/3 and only allow 3 earned runs, which doesn't sound insanely good, but considering where they were at, a collective ERA over 6 entering this series, if I find it pretty mind-boggling that the Mets offense wasn't able to pounce on that, and you can really look at the ninth inning of this game. The Mets are still up 7-6 at this point. They get second and third and nobody out, and they fail to score. As soon as they did that, I knew it was curtains because that I've seen that game before. I've seen the game where you fail to get the insurance runs and it costs you in the end. All they needed was probably one, and they maybe would have been able to close out this game, but instead they fall 8-7. Luckily, you could see the frustration taken out in the final game of the series where they win 19-5 in an absolute laugher. Griffin Canning has another nice start, 5 innings, no earned runs. That's kind of been his forte. 5 and dive. Get you through the half the game, and then hopefully the bullpen figures it out. Jeff McNeil had a nice game in this one, a homer, triple, 3 RBIs, but the nicest game of all was Brandon Nimmo, who very much needed a bounce-back performance to round out his first month, a month that's been pretty disappointing. There's been a lot of talk about him in the cleanup hole. Maybe he needs a new spot in the lineup, but he quells those rumors with a 4-for-6 day, 2 homers, a double, and 9 runs batted in to tie a Mets franchise record. Every Mets starter outside of Francisco Lindor gets multiple hits. The Mets leave D.C. with a split of the 4-game series. In the end, if you're a winning ball club, you want to split the games on the road and win the games at home. A wise man once told me that. That's what the Mets do. It's just frustrating because you could totally see a timeline where the Mets 4-game sweep this and you're on an 11-game win streak. You can't have them all. You'd like to have at least one of those losses.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Again, we're going to cover it later, but some of the cracks in the armor are starting to be exposed. The reliance on absolute zeros from the bullpen, the lack of hitting with runners in scoring position, um, you know, something that the Mets have struggled with at times, and they're starting to get exposed here. And it just when all these things don't line up for you in a game, you lose a game, and it's just a series in DC.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's how you got to look at it.
I think that's, you're going to zoom out and then there will be more frustrating losses along the way. It's kind of the way I felt after the Minnesota series. It was our first series loss in a little bit and, to a team that wasn't performing well. And I thought after those games, there's going to be so many more games that'll be way worse than this. That
That's
we'll
a
just
fact.
completely
You got a
forget
taste of it.
about Harrison Bader. And then, 2 weeks later, here we are. Luckily, the Mets got to come home for, this. Their schedule's been very weird lately. They went 7 games at home, 4 games on the road, 3 games back at home against the Diamondbacks, and now they go back on the road for 6 more games. So it's kind of just been a little bit of a back and forth. They host the Diamondbacks, and, Dalton Feely, one of my close friends in the office, big Arizona Diamondbacks fan, he always talks about how the Diamondbacks struggle so much against the Mets. And I didn't realize it till he gave me some of the stats. They entered this series 4-18 at Citi Field since the start of the 2018 season. There's a couple bad Mets teams in there that are still pummeling the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks hadn't won a series at Citi Field since 2017. So this felt like the perfect medicine for this Mets roster to get back to winning ways. And game 1 was all Mets. Maybe the most fun game to watch this entire year, because this team was just doing it all. They had the best defensive inning that I've seen from a Mets team in a really long time in the 4th, where Vientos dives, the ball hits off his glove, goes right to Lindor, who fires it on a dot to first base to get Randall Grichuk. Then Tyrone Taylor makes, I think, the best catch I've seen him make in a Mets uniform. That ball looked like it was going to fall completely in the gap. He lays out onto the warning track to make a diving play, and then Lindor snares a Eugenio Suarez liner like it's nothing, as in the words of Gary Cohen on his birthday, happy birthday, Gary, and fires to first for a clean throw there. Just 3 beautiful plays in a row. For David Peterson, who kind of needed it. He was living in the zone a lot, wasn't hitting his spots. He still gets through 5 innings, 1 earned run here. The Mets hit a bunch of homers off Eduardo Rodriguez, Starling Marte, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, all homer. They lead 8-0 in the 5th. And then, honestly, a lower note in this game, but one I really valued, Jose Butto has a nice bounce back outing. He starts a clean inning, which I think is kind of where we're at with him. I don't know if we can use him to put out fires. He begins the 6th and 7th inning, pitches 2 hitless innings, strikes out 4, and the Mets get a win at Citi Field to improve to 13-1 at their home ballpark, the best home start in franchise history. 21-9 on the season is their best 30-game start to a season since 2006, when they also went 21-9. The vibes were very, very high after this game, which is why the next 2 became very confusing.
Yeah, I mean, coming off of the last game in D.C. where they put up 19, and then to put up a big 4 spot in the 2nd inning, to do it in that fashion, and then you mentioned that single inning of defense was, I've watched the highlights like 40 times.
I watched it on the train this morning.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you don't see 3 consecutive plays like that are, that outstanding, like a skill set. And this is part of David Stearns, and obviously, Lindor was here before him, but like the importance of up the middle defense, you
Yes.
see why. It's because when David Peterson doesn't have his best stuff, he could still go 5 and give up 1 run because the guys behind him can handle a rocket off the bat. It's still hard to get a hit in the big leagues, especially when you have good defense behind you. And that was nice to see Butto. I'm not writing him off on coming in with runners in scoring position. We've seen him do it really well in that position. But right now, to get him, locked in and mentally comfortable, this is what Carlos Mendoza does so well, getting you in a position to be very good, to be successful, to build up confidence moving forward. Give him a clean inning. Let him get his feet back underneath him, do this for a little bit, and then throw him back into the fire. We'll see that. But this was a really huge win.
Yeah, this was just a fun one through and through. It was big for the bullpen to only use 2 guys, one of which got, DFA'd after. Shout out Kevin Herget, New Jersey native, giving us those 2 innings at the end. Kind of stood up big. We didn't have to use Reed Garrett.
Sure did.
And I just loved the best part of that inning we keep talking about is Peterson's reactions, especially after the first Lindor play where he's almost like, how? Like, what are you even doing? Like, why are you there?
That's about the most emotion you'll see from Peterson on the baseball field.
A usually stoic dude, you're right.
Yeah, he's very stoic. That was good. He's like, wow, really? Like, appreciate you.
Wednesday's game, the second game of the series, was JM Mets Day. We had a crew of 20 of us take the 7 line from the office and go to this game. I was a little worried because I'm the guy that usually organizes it, and I organized it on a game where the Mets didn't have a starting pitcher. When I looked a week ago, it was Kodai Senga versus Corbin Burns. I thought, oh, perfect. This will be fun. Senga gets the extra day. And I'm thinking, oh, shit. I brought everyone here to watch Brandon Waddle pitch. Brandon Waddle looked amazing. Waddell, I'm sorry, I didn't watch the broadcast. So I don't know the exact pronunciation. Shout out the dude from AAA, a Korea signing, much like Jared Young, who's still in the minor leagues for the Mets right now. 4 1/3 innings, no earned runs, 3 hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts as the bulk guy after Brazoban in this game. It was set up well. The Mets called up the lefty to face a lefty-heavy lineup. It worked out perfectly. So they get through 6 1/3 in this game with no earned runs allowed from Brazoban and Waddell against the offense that ranked the best in Major League Baseball last year. That sounds like a recipe for winning a game, right? Well, no, not exactly, because the Mets were relying on 1 run of support from a Mark Vientos solo home run in the 4th inning. They were 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position in this game. The most painful at-bats of all came at the very end. We'll get to that in just a second, because Ryan Stanek blows a lead for the 3rd consecutive outing in the 7th inning. Geraldo Perdomo, who's Dalton's favorite player and sometimes my least favorite player, comes through with the 2-run single. A ball that looked like it could have been caught. I thought McNeil was playing really far back in left field. I don't know if that was just a miscommunication or weird alignment there, but that was a ball that I felt like should have been caught. Instead, it falls for the 2-run single. The Mets were very short-handed in the bullpen on this game. Chris Davinsky pitched the 8th. Carlos Mendoza opts to not use a higher leverage guy in the 9th inning. I think Reed Garrett might have been an option. Edwin Diaz was warming up. He gives Chris Davinsky the 2nd inning. Davinsky gives up a pair of sacrifice flies, so instead of 2-1, it's 4-1, and then that's when this 9th inning rally really hurts, because Tyrone Taylor gives you a home run. I mean, we mentioned the 4-run 2nd inning in Game 1. That was a Tyrone Taylor, Jose Azocar rally. These guys have been contributing at the bottom of the lineup, and it makes you feel like you can come back at any moment. He homers off Justin Martinez, who's nasty, by the way. And then the Mets load the bases with nobody out. Walk, hit by pitch. So it's bases loaded. They get 1 run on a weird RBI groundout that might have hit Jesse Winker's foot. I don't know. He didn't run out of the box, so maybe he was convinced, but either way, very weird play. And then very similar to what's going to happen in our next game, Mark Vientos strikes out. Francisco Alvarez grounds out. The Mets had to just put the ball in play to get a run home. Instead, they go down 4-3 in a game where they got some really good performances out of guys you wouldn't expect them to. And they lose at Citi Field for just the 2nd time this season. Unfortunately, I am at that game. I am very sad. They lose by 1 run.
Yeah, they lost by 1, and it's Waddell.
Waddell,
I'm like 99%.
But I was waddling in the crowd.
Yeah, I'm 90. You're in the crowd. You can't hear the sweet sounds of Gary Cohen's voice.
Oh, and it's, by the way, I'm sorry, Buteau, not Jose Buto. Buteau, that's new.
Yeah, yep, that's new. We have to give him that respect of pronouncing his name properly. You're right. This was a tough one. You got Tyrone Taylor going 3 for 4 in the 9 spot.
Beautiful.
Hitting that big home run.
He's hitting so much better lately.
He looks better. He does. He looks more comfortable, more confident. This is a hard one. Waddell, you have a storybook debut for a kid that nobody thought about. They put him in a great position. Brazoban does incredible the first 2 innings. And then he comes in and deals, and he gets a runner on in the 7th? Yeah, his 5th inning of work, but the 7th inning. And it feels so good, and then Stanek comes in to shut it down. You're like, you got one of your guys there.
And I like that spot for him too, not the 9th inning this time.
Absolutely,
yeah.
That's the correct. It felt like the right move. This felt like something. It felt like, all right, we're gonna lock this kid's win down. You know, he's been so good. He's made it this far. Let's not push our luck. Let's bring in the horses at the back end of the bullpen. Let him shut it down, and he looked hittable again. Like, his stuff looks great. I don't know what it is. I have no way to identify it from the TV.
And that was his post-game quote too. He said he looked into the numbers and all of his stuff is still plus, all that stuff.
It looks great. Yeah. Maybe it's location, maybe it's sequencing, who knows? But it didn't work out. It's baseball. It didn't work out for him for the 3rd day in a row. This is a tough one because I really wanted Waddell to get that W, to get the lineup card, to get the beer shower, in the cart with the guys. That was a tough one. And the way it ended. This has been the story though. This is why this streak of losses, or this style of baseball that we're covering, It's the way that they lose
Yeah.
because they're knocking on the door of a comeback victory, and then they let it slip away. And so that's why these stand out more. The Viento strikeout for me was like, I'm just waiting for this guy to have some moments consecutively to kind of hit his stride for this season, and it just hasn't happened yet. Still think it'll be fine and he'll come out, but that was a big strikeout.
Yeah, I mean, you go. Oh, I can butter knife April 12th to April 30th, and I've got Vientos with a 930 OPS and 4 homers in
Beautiful.
15 games, which is great. The situational hitting was terrible this week. So many big spots where all we needed was a ball in play, and I'm seeing home run cuts. I'm seeing chasing on low and away sliders, and it's a long season. He's going to round out because those good swings are still there. It's just the late at bats from him. We got 3 in the span of 5 games that could have changed losses to wins, and all 3 of them didn't end up doing that.
It's so easy for us to talk about it, right?
Of course.
You know what I mean? It's the hardest thing to do in sports is to hit a baseball. You're facing, nasty guys out of the bullpen, but you want them to come through, and you believe in them to come through, and they didn't. Like you said, though, Vientos has looked
So much better.
so much better. Like
He's gonna be fun.
he's still finding his way on an at bat to at bat basis, but we saw real strides towards seeing the guy that we know he is. So that is a plus, but that's such a big situation. Um, Strikeouts are fine, but with the bases loaded there, just put a ball in play, tie a ball game.
Because they have the infield up too, and Vientos, he pretty much always hits the ball hard, so anything could have squeaked through.
Even when he doesn't crush the ball, he usually gets hits the ball the softest ever, and I don't know how many infield hits he had last year between
Where
him.
he just kind of topped the ball up the third baseline.
Because they're playing back so far
Yep.
between him and Jose Iglesias last year. There were so many infield hits because they got to trust Vientos' power, and then he'll top one. I just put the ball in play there, but it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
Big league pitchers are tough. It was just a tough spot.
I want to get your thoughts on this and let me know if I'm being too much of a fan. The only real moment that I have some criticism for Carlos Mendoza this week, and I know that it's a long season. He's got to manage pretty tight with his bullpen. I thought giving Chris Davinsky the second inning was pushing his luck a little bit. It's a 1-run game, a pivotal point in the series. You can clean up a series win with a guy like Reed Garrett who hasn't given up a run in a game this season. I thought that was a spot for him. Some people were, at the moment, I was wondering why it wasn't Diaz who was already warming up. In retrospect, not a save opportunity. We know the numbers there with Diaz. I do think that Mendoza could have, I don't know. Do you think he pushed his luck, or do you think his hands were kind of tied in that moment?
So obviously, if we're talking about this game only, should have brought in Reed Garrett there. But here's the thing. I think he has a lot of information at this point that we didn't have. He looked at the fact that Stanek has pitched a bunch in a row. He's looking at tomorrow. He's looking at the next day. There's a lot of injury stuff that we hadn't heard about yet that's coming through that I guarantee you he is already made well aware of, and he's planning for the future. Davinsky got put in a spot that if he comes through, he's a hero.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't come through, it's not his fault because the manager should have put him there. Obviously, I think he should have went with Reed Garrett because you still got to win, and you've kind of been down a little bit. But we don't have all the information on what he's dealing with, the knowledge that he has, because things are falling apart in the bullpen, health wise. So.
Yeah, I mean, we have Danny Young looking at Tommy John surgery. We have AJ Minter looking at season-ending surgery for a lat injury. It's getting thin quick. They're bringing back Brooks Raley, but he's on the 60-day IL, so he's not due for an imminent return. So yeah, I mean, you got to think about, okay, if I'm Carlos Mendoza, I have to figure Kodai Senga's probably not giving me 7 tomorrow. I'm probably going to need Max Kranick. Edwin Diaz has been, once every 3 days at this point because whatever he's dealing with. So I'm down to either push my guy for 2 innings and send him down the next day, or I can use Reed Garrett and hope that everything works out tomorrow. Sometimes you take the gamble and it doesn't flip your way.
Yeah. Do we remember when all the injury news came out? Was this already known.
This was, I think, a late night dump after, or an early morning thing after game two. It was revolving around this game because there was a lot of moves
I think it was
at once.
after this game.
Yeah.
So he's trying to manage a bullpen. I'm not going to second guess him. Obviously, it was wrong with Davinsky. Like,
Yeah.
gave it up, whatever the case may be. But yeah, man, you nailed it. So this was a tough one too. I think the way it ended, and because of Waddell's debut and the bullpen game, and they look so great. Like if you get through the beginning of a bullpen game or a spot start dominant, I mean, 3 hits and 6+ innings and no runs between the two guys, you're feeling real good about the outcome, and it just didn't work out. Another
Yeah, I
kind of
mean-
a heartbreaker letdown where
Always
a
happens.
heartbreaker where you don't expect to win at the beginning of the game. You're like, oh, maybe we win. And then you get into a position where you're like, oh, we're winning. That's great. And then it doesn't come through.
And it's not even on the bullpen in this game. It's on the offense for going over 10 with runners in scoring position. I mean, that's the larger story. It's just frustrating because in game 3, you see Reed Garrett come into a 3-1 game that never feels like it's in the Mets' hands. Whereas you could have had him when you guys had a lead. It's all scrutinizing because the team is playing such good baseball and you want to get every win possible. But that leads us to game 3 where it's Kodai Senga versus Zach Gallen. This was the much lesser of the two Kodai Senga outings this week. He did not look sharp. A lot of traffic in this start. The final line would have looked way worse if not for Brandon Nimmo's great catch in left field to rob a possible grand slam from Corbin Carroll. Was it getting over the fence? Because I was doing some work while it happened. I think it might have had a chance, but either way, that ball gets down. It's clearing the bases at the very least. So he ends his outing with 4 innings, 1 earned run, 5 hits, and 3 walks. So 8 base runners in 4 innings on 87 pitches. And I think it was good to pull him after that 4th inning because they barely got out by the skin of their teeth. Let's not push Kodai Senga any further. Hey, Jerry, we're 30 minutes into a Shea Station episode again. You know what name we haven't said once? Juan Soto. Again. Except we finally get to talk about him in a positive light because he finally hits his first homer at Citi Field off Zach Allen to left center field. And better yet, it was one of 2 on the day, a pair of solo shots for Juan Soto to get off the schneid and give the Mets some offense. They're close late again in this freaking game, down 3-2 in the 8th inning. They spark another rally. Soto homers to make it a 1-run game. Then Alonso walks. Winker doubles on a ball that I think he thought was getting out. Luckily, he still makes it to second base. That could have been a very ugly highlight. Runners on second and third. 1 out. Mark Vientos up again. Strikeout. Nimmo comes up. He's been dealing with flu-like symptoms. Started this game. He was 0 for 3 at the time. He ends his day 0 for 4 with a strikeout against Kevin Ginkel. The Mets' 5 through 9 hitters in this game go 1 for 19 with 8 strikeouts. And by then, it was curtains because the Diamondbacks tacked on in the 9th inning. We're lucky it was only 4-2 because Ty Adcock, that was tough to watch. A lot of walks. Luckily, he gets through without any further damage. But Shelby Miller shuts down the Mets offense in the end. And the Diamondbacks go into Citi Field and win their first series there in 8 years. And the Mets lose their first home series since July 27th of last year. Or excuse me, their first home series against August last year against the Athletics, actually. I forgot about that series. Who was that? Austin Adams doing OMG to the crowd?
Yeah,
I remember that
exactly.
series.
I was going to say the same thing.
The Mets go 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position, leave 20 men on base in their last 2 games of this series after scoring 25 runs in a pair of games leading up to that. So just a mind-boggling couple of days here for the Mets offense, and no off day to kind of cure any bad stretch here. It's just a frustrating pair of losses against a good team who's not been playing at their best. The Diamondbacks are kind of due for some kind of run soon, and we're going to have to play them again very soon. We go to Arizona after the St. Louis trip.
Yeah, and this is a series they should have won. Like
Yeah.
they were in position, and this is something that this Mets team has done so well all season long, is win these ball games because their record is a shining example of how you win. And they just didn't do it, and they didn't do it over a stretch here, in these last few series. But that's not the story for me. If you want to talk about it a little bit more, the story for me isn't Juan Soto's lack of you know, production on the offensive side. I think that's coming. I guarantee you that's coming. This guy's unbelievable. It's the injuries to the bullpen.
Yeah, it's getting
That's to me,
scary.
that's the story.
It's getting scary.
Yeah.
Like you kind of felt like you were burning both ends of a candle when, every Mets starter has been so sharp, but they're also only giving you 5 innings every time out. And through 1 month, we're already seeing the ripple effect of that, of guys getting used more often than not. You're seeing, the Mets are being so careful with Edwin Diaz and Kodai Senga, and I think that's the right thing to do because of how much money these guys are making, how much the Mets are going to lean on these guys throughout the whole season. But everyone else feels the ripple effect of that. Max Kranick threw 20 innings in April. That puts him on pace for over 100 out of the bullpen on the entire year. I know he's a starting pitcher, but that's a lot. I mean, Huascar Brosman throws 19 innings in April. Like, these are big, big numbers, and the Mets simply don't have enough bodies back there to live like this for very long. You're lucky it's not a lot of the guys that you'll rely on deep into games, but you don't want anyone to get hurt at the end of the day. The biggest thing for me is I think the Mets are feeling the loss of A.J. Minter. They're feeling it hard. Now, they have no lefties in their bullpen right now because both him and Danny Young went down at the same time, which you throw up your hands and say, how does this happen? With Minter, it's tough because he looks so sharp. He was getting both sides of the plate out. He was pitching in leverage spots. Again, he came in for that Nats walk-off in Game 1, but he still looked good in that outing. It was just a dribbler that got through that ended up costing them the game. I think the Mets are going to miss A.J. Minter a lot, and he's going to be tough to replace, and it just kind of becomes the symbol of this overarching theme that this once indestructible Mets bullpen is showing cracks in the armory because they're just getting exposed. They're getting used too much, and I don't know what the solution is, really.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Minter looked incredible. He looked like vintage prime AJ Minter.
Yeah.
Minter, and he was, he got him for another year. You're going to get a great move out of that. This is a tough one. Danny Young going down, and looks like it might be Tommy John, or probably. He had just, for me, he's been good for a while, but he looked like he figured out how to be great.
He had the confidence boost outing, which was when he came in versus Harper and Schwarber. He needed an outing like that, I think, to believe in himself again, and you could see it.
And to figure it, like, he would get outs, but it would be like make your manager want to throw up,
yes,
pull his hair out, kind of, 3-1 every batter, and then work your way out. But his stuff was so good, and then to see Minter and him go down at the same time. And then they had just signed Brooks Raley, and he's not going to be
June,
he's not gonna
maybe
be here until July.
Yeah, I think his first. It was a report by Joel Sherman. Let me find it. His doctors expect him to throw his first rehab games in June. So yeah, probably July. If I had to guess.
July. I mean, that's wild, and he's not going to push it. He's not going to rush back. So they're and it came out, that they're looking for left-handed bullpen help. So they're on the market.
Do you know who just signed with the Nationals?
Yeah,
the one that got away yet again, Andrew Chafin. As soon as I even had the thought of like, oh, he's out there, I opened Twitter and he's signed. Great.
That's
Thanks
exactly what I said.
Unbelievable.
I said the same thing. I was like, are they finally gonna sign Chafin? We've been talking about it for what?
What a story
5
it would have
years?
been. What a story. God damn it.
Oh yeah, so they need some help, and they could make some trades. I don't know what the trade market looks like. There's not many teams that have a guy that you can count on that the Mets would give up prospects for or eat money on that moves the needle for this team. But they need some help on the left side. Their depth of talented arms in the bullpen has shined bright because we've seen them all season long be one of the best in the game, if not for a good chunk of this season, the best in the game at doing everything. And now they're really vulnerable, and they need some real good luck here with the way the games are going to line up for them not to wear out the other guys. And to have some, like, the key is to just find guys that are going to keep you in the ball game. Give up a run every once in a while. And keep the Mets offense within striking distance. Give your team a chance to win, to come back, whatever the case may be. When you're down 1, down 2, and you can't pitch that A group, this is where the Mets shine so much. when they were losing in the middle innings, they were able to bring in a Danny Young. They were able to bring in a Max Kranick. These guys to throw up zeros and allow the team to come back and have a spectacular win. Now this is where your depth really gets tested, because now that you're not going to pitch your A bullpen when you're down 2 runs in the sixth. Are those B guys now C or D that are going to give up multiple runs to give you no shot at coming back? We'll see. But they're in a tough spot, and this is going to be an interesting stretch for the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's going to land you in these Chris Davinsky type situations. Do I push him for a second inning, hopefully get the 0, and then I have Reed for 6 outs tomorrow? Sometimes you take those risks because it's the difference between maybe a sweep or losing the series, and these are the tough decisions that Carlos Mendoza is going to have to make. The Mets bullpen has thrown the 4th most innings in baseball this year, 124 on the year already. They do rank still with the 8th best ERA. They're not walking as many dudes as they did last year, but speaking of last year, this was a storyline. The Mets starters were not giving the bullpen any length, and then in May, the Mets had a horrible month where they were blowing leads left and right, and I'm not saying that it feels like it's going to happen again, but the recipe right now is similar. I know the Mets rotation has been much, much better than they were in April of last year, but again, when you have 5 guys that are all 5 and dive, you're going to run out of bullpen options sooner rather than later. So maybe a move is imminent. I don't know what that move is, but it's going to be hard to envision the Mets, continuing to play this level of baseball with no lefty in their bullpen and 3 guys they can rely on late in games. And I think it's exactly what you said. We've had so many comeback wins and great wins in April because we have guys that can throw up zeros in the middle innings that are not Edwin Diaz, Reed Garrett, Huascar Brasban, those type of guys. And those options are running thin. I still think that the Mets have a lot of great depth. Dedniel Nunez has been pitching better in AAA as of late. He's probably going to be the next guy up if I had to guess. But after that, that's when the depth starts to get really thin.
Well, this is what happened to Dedniel Nunez last year.
Yeah.
This is a little earlier in the season, if I recall, but he got pushed up into, he was pitching amazing, got pushed up into, we need you to be a guy on a regular basis, and they used him all the time, and he got hurt. This is what happened to Reed Garrett last year when Edwin Diaz went down. They pushed him to try to be the closer, and his confidence got shook, and it took him a while to get back to who he is now. I think Mendoza has learned not to push certain guys in certain ways. It'll be an interesting navigation. Again, this is why David Stearns makes the big bucks. He needs to go out and find a guy or 2 to fill in admirably and do a good job, because this is a really high championship caliber team, and you can't let them flounder for too long if it even happens. But you also can't sacrifice your October run by forcing your high-end bullpen guys to pitch in all these games in May. So yeah. So it's wild. You
mentioned Mendoza learning throughout his rookie year, and I think Dedniel Nunez is the case example. From May 3rd to June 28th last year, he made 11 outings, and 6 of them were 6 outs or more, which is a lot of bullets thrown. By the time I think they realized and, got more reinforcements in July, they reeled back Nunez, but by then I think the damage had been done, because after July, he hit the shelf for the rest of the year. They want to avoid that, and if it means that they're going to, take chances with guys like Chris Davinsky and Ty Adcock and Genesis Cabrera in spots where you wouldn't prefer them pitch, they're playing in a 162-game season, whereas I think last year they had to make more reactionary moves to climb out of the hole that they were in at 22-33. It's a little bit of a different case right now with this 10-game cushion that they have, but it's going to be a tough road trip to navigate. The Mets got 6 more games in the next 6 days before they get an off day, and Sunday they're going to use another spot starter. They have a TBD on Sunday right now. It's not going to be Brandon Waddell, because unless there is a injury, he can't come up for another 15 days after being optioned. So is it going to be Brandon Sproat? Is it going to be Justin Hagenman? I don't know, but the Mets are going to lean into this depth. Well. He did. He pitched all right. In Minnesota, that was, right?
I believe so, yep.
So we'll probably see another one of those depth options, but if the Mets can get those knocks with runners in scoring position and get the big hit late, I still think this team is talented enough to win when they're not at their top strength roster-wise.
I have one question for you.
Sure.
How has Sean Reed-Foley been pitching?
Unfortunately, Jerry, he has not been pitching very well. I had the stats up before. His ERA is currently over 10, which is not what you want. It is the International League, so let's take it with a grain of salt, please, ladies and gentlemen.
The International League is pitcher friendly.
Oh, that's the other way? That's brutal.
Worse.
That's brutal.
PCL is hitter friendly.
8 innings, 9 earned runs, 12 hits, 13 walks to 15 strikeouts. So
that's it.
I don't think he's going to be an option.
That's not what he does either. He's a yes type guy too, pound the strike zone.
You know who's been pitching really well down there? 10 and a third. Or let me get this right. 11 and a third innings, 3 earned runs, 14 strikeouts to 7 walks.
Can I take a guess?
Sure.
Is it Dr. Hartwig?
It is not Dr. Hartwig. It is fellow lefty Anthony Gose, former outfielder, who's been pretty spectacular, has a lightning fastball, so maybe we see him next.
What's his walks?
7 to 14.
In how many innings? 7 walks?
7 walks and 11 and a third.
Okay. Not bad.
I mean, beggars can't be choosers at this point. It's kind of the theme.
That's a fact. Yeah, man. I mean, they've got some big league capable arms. I like Rico Garcia down there. There's nothing jumps off of the book, but the guy's a competitor.
I mean, we just mentioned Hagenman he pitched well in his one start. He has an ERA over 9 in AAA, so maybe that's not indicative. Who knows?
Maybe AAA's harder than the big. Yeah, man. They're gonna have to do something. This is where your organization. Again, I'm gonna zoom out. I'm gonna go macro version here. This is why when Stevie Cohen bought the team, that he waited patiently to bring in David Stearns, and this is why David Stearns was so sought after, because he created a winning organization from top to bottom. And if you don't have it in-house, you have to go figure it out and make moves, because unlike last year or 2 years ago, this team's identity is they're a contender already. So, there were question marks on the last few years on if this team are they going to sell? Are they going to buy? This is a clearly buy type team, especially right now.
And one guy who we didn't mention, who I think actually could be returning sometime soon, he probably might have been back already if he didn't get sick last week, Paul Blackburn, who I think is on the horizon, probably going to make some relief outings in AAA soon. That could be a bulk guy out of the bullpen, or maybe a member of the rotation if they want to do this 6-man. I don't know, but there are some innings that the Mets could really use, and they could come from him.
They've got some options. They'll figure it out. This is a smart group of front office, coaching staff, ownership. They'll figure it out.
All right, let's stop with all the dreariness. Let's give out our April awards. It's the end of the first month of the season. The Mets are 21-11. They're in first place. Let's stop all our belly aching and talk about some good stuff. I laid out 4 possible awards for us and all the guys that I think are possible candidates. Do you have one you want to start with? One you know for sure is your lock?
Yeah, I mean, this is an easy one. This is MVP.
Why? Who you got?
I mean, Pete Alonso is easily the Mets MVP of April. I mean, this guy is dominating. He is the MVP of this offense by far. He stepped up from the jump, right off the bat, working doubles the other way, hitting home runs when he needs to. 11 doubles. This is the power. This is the complete hitter that Pete Alonso has always envisioned himself to be, that he's shown in long streaks, long stretches throughout his career that we didn't see at all last season. Just a complete hitter. He's hitting 340.
I love
on
that.
Base.
It's the best part.
That's unreal. It really is. And then the on base percentage, 475. The slug is where he hasn't hit league leading home run. He has 7 home runs, but it's the doubles. It's the slugging percentage at 650 for an OPS of 1.1. This is easily the MVP of this offense from the jump, right off the bat.
4th in batting average among qualified hitters, which is not what you think of when you think of Pete Alonso. 2nd in on base, 2nd in slugging, 2nd in OPS, 2nd in OPS plus, 2nd in wins above replacement. Guess who's the only guy in front of him?
The guy in the Bronx.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's not bad.
He's
But that's
first in
pretty
the National
cool.
League.
That's pretty cool. It's Pete
It's-
Alonso and Aaron Judge, and then everybody else. That's kind of
Yeah,
sick.
it really is. Like I know, our boy Trevor Plouffe has really been on a let people know Aaron Judge is historically great.
Right.
And I actually didn't put him in that same category, and I think I got complacent, and I understand that Aaron Judge is a great hitter. Historically, though, he might be one of the greatest right-handed hitters to ever put on a uniform.
I saw a stat yesterday that was he has an on-base percentage of 500 in his last cumulative 162 games, that's what Barry Bonds did. There's only one other hitter really in the past 50 years that's done that. It's Barry Bonds. So enough of the Judge propaganda bleeding into our show.
Outside of Aaron Judge, this is the best hitter, like complete hitter, going the other way, taking his walks. He's got more walks than strikeouts.
Yes.
He's batting 340. Like he's been, and the Mets needed him because Juan Soto wasn't doing it. Lindor was a little bit streaky at the beginning, and Nimmo hasn't done it. Vientos hasn't done it. This team would be nowhere without Pete Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, with Pete, it's just it's cool because there was times last year where he was the third best first baseman in his own division, with Bryce Harper and Matt Olson, and now he's very clearly the best hitter of the National League after the first month of play, and he deserves it. Good for Pete. He had to deal with a lot of shit last year, such an up and down season. He's coming to his own. He's going to get the Mets homer record. He's 5th on the RBI list now. Very cool. Before we go on, the slumping Juan Soto and his 822 OPS, just wanted to mention that just in case anyone.
Can we his OPS plus of 136?
He's in a deep slump, who knows when he's going to
really
get out
is.
of it.
He's only batting 250.
But it's
wild.
cool that the Mets are doing this well, and Juan Soto is right now the third best hitter on their team because Lindor had a great April. Hit 298, 6 homers, a 141 OPS plus for him. But yes, the MVP very clearly is going to be Pete Alonso for the month of April. The Cy Young, not as clear, in my opinion. A couple guys, I listed everyone in the rotation because the rotation's been so great. Do you have a clear-cut favorite here?
I want you to go first on this one because
I'm so glad you
I want to hear
asked.
your arguments because I have my vote and I just want to hear where you go with this.
Just indulge me for a second. I am taking Tyler McGill. I've been very, very impressed. I think I do feel like at times I've been selling Kodai Senga short because I do think overall on the year it will be Kodai Senga. If he stays healthy, he is the ace of this team. He's the most talented pitcher in this rotation. And you know what, man? He has a 1.38 ERA and 6 starts. He's been pretty freaking good. But Tyler McGill, the biggest thing for me is the strikeout potential. 11.3 K per 9 is one of the best marks in the league among qualified pitchers. His 3.25 strikeout per walk ratio is by far the best of his career. He's got the ERA below 2, and lately he's been pitching deeper into games, which I think was the biggest hurdle into me buying into Tyler McGill. The first 4 starts, he didn't go more than 5 innings. Then, April 21st, he has that magical game against Philadelphia. Strikes out 10 batters, and then the last start, he finishes 6 for the first time. If he keeps building on that, there's a serious conversation to be had that Tyler McGill won't relinquish his spot at any point. But this is the point we got to in 2022, where he had a terrific first month. It looked like we were about to watch a new ace blossom, and then it all fell apart, and then he got hurt, and then they didn't know his role for the rest of the season. This is the pivot point. If we can come back to this at the end of May, and these numbers aren't even in a similar spot, but still a good spot, you can start to consider this season as a true breakout for Tyler McGill. So after 1 month, I'm the most high on him, but we'll see. I'm also the most wary.
I love it because I think, we've been talking about Kodai Senga and the potential that he has. Tyler McGill's been great. I actually think he might be the MVP or the Cy Young of our team at the end of the season.
Okay.
But right now, results are results. You vote on what you have in front of you. And Kodai Senga has been unbelievable. He's thrown the most innings on the team, and this is a guy that didn't throw any innings last year, basically. He's got 32 2/3 innings in 6 starts. Everybody else has 6 starts as well, and he's got first on the team and number of outs he's given this team. He's also got the best ERA at 1.38.
That's so nice.
That is incredible. And it's not a fluke. Like he's getting weak contact. His strikeouts are way down, but so are his walks. He's only walking 3.3 per nine, which is really good for him. That's kind of been when he's at his worst. It's been because he's giving free passes. His ERA plus is 282. Like that's absurd. It's unbelievable. He's been a top 15 starting pitcher in the game. Right now, he would get top five Cy Young votes if this is where it gets. And I can't, again, I've been critical of him, not in a harsh way, like to be negative, but because I see how much more potential he has. And this is a strict, I've got stats in front of me. This is how you vote because baseball is completely, analytical here when you're dealing with awards, I believe. And for me, it's Kodai Senga as the Cy Young.
Through his first 36 starts of his career, 2.73 ERA, 151 ERA plus, 1.19 WHIP. I mean, this is a major league ace. That contract that the Mets signed, 5 years for 75, one of the best in baseball. And Kodai Senga, as long as they can protect him and continue to manage him well, he's going to have a terrific season. Pretty alarming that the most innings from a Mets starting pitcher over 6 starts is 32 and 2/3. That's less than 6 on average. But I keep thinking about that one Athletic start, 7 innings, no earned runs. He looked so good in that Sacramento Heat. Hopefully we get more of that Kodai Senga going forward.
This is my last touch on Kodai Senga. I didn't have it in front of me at the time, but FIP, fielding independent pitching, like this is designed to put you on an even playing field with everybody. His ERA is 1.38. Usually the FIP, if his numbers are not what they might be, the FIP is like really high to make up for it. His FIP is 2.75. Now again, Tyler McGill's is 2.32, and there's a reason why he chose him. And he was in consideration because he's looked so good and so consistent. But 275 is still very, very good. It's not like it's fluky. His batting average for balls in play is like 050. He's just been really good.
This next one I think is the toughest one to call. I gave it 2 names because I wasn't sure how I wanted to phrase it, but your unsung hero or your biggest surprise of the first month of the season. I see like 4 different guys I could give this to, but I do think that I have my answer if you want me to go first.
I want you to go first. I do.
This hurts because it's his birthday. I love Luis Torrens. Shout out, happy birthday, Luis Torrens. Luis Angel Acuna has looked really good. I want him to get more playing time. It is hard to imagine how many games this team would have blown if not for Max Kranick giving them 20 great innings to start the year. This is a guy that people thought weren't going to make the team out of spring training, and he's come up and been so clutch. The biggest thing for me, 20 1/3 innings, 1 walk to 13 strikeouts. He's just pumping bullets in the zone and getting outs for this team and giving them long outings. I'm just hoping that they can keep this dude healthy because he hasn't pitched in the big league since 2022. He's throwing a lot for this team. I had a whole tweet carved out for him. He's my put out the fire guy, the fireman of the Mets rotation, the firefighter, if you will, because even from his first outing of the year where Carlos Mendoza said, "Hey man, well, I know you haven't pitched in 3 years. Here's Yordan Alvarez. Get us in the 9th inning." And he did. He retired 23 of 24 batters to start his season. He's gotten 5 or more outs in 6 of his 11 outings, and he came in cold twice in 3 days when pitchers went down in that DC series and gave the Mets clutch outs to keep them close in games. Brazaban's been great as well, but for me, Kranick has been the guy because he's not going to walk guys. He's going to go after hitters no matter who they are, and he's a Mets fan growing up, and I got to admit, even after the first month of the season, that still tugs my heartstrings. He's my guy. He's my unsung hero.
I love it. I agree. Max Kranick is easily for me. This is the second easiest outside of Pete Alonso being the MVP. To me, Max Kranick has been the unsung hero for April for these Mets. 20 innings out of the bullpen is absurd. 20 1/3. I don't want to shortchange him. 2.66 ERA. and he did it from the jump. He is. I didn't think he was going to make this team. I thought Nunez
Yeah.
was farther along in where he was coming back from his injury last year, and it wasn't it. And Max Kranick stepped up and is every bit the thing he needed. Look, this whip is absurd. 0.689.
That's the best in baseball for pitchers with at least 20 innings, by the way.
0.689. That's unreal. You know, Reed Garrett has been the high leverage guy that to me has been unbelievable. He's pitched 13 and a third innings. That's a good month.
Yeah.
That's a hardy month for a reliever. But Kranick is 20 and a third innings. We talked about it numerous times with the thinning of this bullpen with the injuries. You need a guy that can come in at any given point in the game, whether you're up or down by 3 runs or less, and put up some zeros to allow your good team to come back. Max Kranick has been that. He's been a folk hero. Grew up a Mets fan. Like it's been wonderful. I'm not sure how sustainable 0.689 ERA is, but I've been impressed enough to think this guy could probably be a really good bullpen guy for a run for a long time. I don't expect him to have, you know, under sub 1 whip all the time, but his fastball plays and he spots it up, and he's got one of the best sliders in the game right now. I think, let me give you these numbers on his slider. He's thrown 91 of them this season. They're batting a $130 off of it, and they're slugging a $174.
Is that good?
That is incredible. These are numbers, and it's a slider. Like he throws 5 pitches, I think, 5 pitches, 4-seam slider. He's got a good curveball, a decent sweeper, and a sinker. But that 4-seam slider combination, and he dots it up. Very impressed. He's definitely the unhung. Whoops, my bad. I haven't seen him in the shower.
We'll find out. I don't know. Maybe.
Whoops. But he is the unsung hero for the Mets in April.
Yeah, best whip in baseball at .69 of pitchers with at least 20 innings. 6th best batting average against. 2nd best strikeout to walk ratio, trailing only the most famous strike thrower in the game, Nate Eovaldi, who just doesn't walk anybody. This is good company for Max Kranick. Just protect him, please. Just, let's keep him safe. 8-4 in games that he pitched in were the Mets in April. So shout out Max Kranick. Shout out all the other guys. I mean, Griffin Kenning's been a nice story. Brazaban's been great after a really underwhelming 2024. Reed's been terrific with a lesser sample size. And then Terren's picking up the slack for an injured Alvarez, and Luis Angel Acuna taking advantage and winning the playing time battle against Brett Beatty. These have all been key contributing reasons why the Mets have had the month that they have had to start this year. It could have been better if some of these guys in our last category performed a little bit more to our expectations. But I'm phrasing this one as your bet to bounce back. I don't want this to be most disappointing. This is your bounce back candidate. Who do you think after the first month will be much better than their April? I got Vientos here, Nimmo here, Brett Beatty, Edwin Diaz, who hasn't blown a save, just hasn't looked his absolute sharpest, Jose Budo, and Ryan Stanek. I think I have mine, but I'll defer to you for this one. You can go first.
I like it. You changed my answer because bet to bounce back is a different answer than most disappointing. My bet to bounce back is Mark Vientos.
Okay.
I just believe in this guy. I believe in his work ethic. I believe in his ability to learn. Like, that's been my biggest, apart from him just being really good, his ability to be humble, to hear feedback, to soak up knowledge from these guys around him has been the biggest thing for me to think this guy is going to bounce back. He started to at times. He's had some really big moments that didn't come through for the Mets, but his swing is still there. He just it's execution and game plan and swing decisions when he's at bat. But I really truly believe this guy is the player that he gave us a glimpse of last season, and I believe he is the bet to bounce back.
I think so too, and the Mets are going to need him big time if they're going to get this offense right, especially in these next 6 games. And you feel like he's already there. We mentioned his stats over the last 15 games, they're great. It's just the big hit. We're still waiting for that. And that's what Mark Vientos became so synonymous with last year, between his walk-off homer against the Reds, between all those playoff home runs. It's kind of an unfair expectation at times of, oh, Mark Vientos is up in a late and close spot, we're going to win the game. And I do think he'll get back to that, because some guys are built for the big moment, and Mark Vientos showed that he very clearly is at a young age. And he just had a slow first month. That's going to happen. For me, it might be shocking considering the injury concerns and how lightly he's been used. It's Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz's strikeout numbers are still alien. He has not blown a save this year. He's 7 for 7. The biggest thing for me, and you saw it in the DC outing he had where he locked up the save, Francisco Alvarez is back. Last year, Edwin Diaz was pretty much, I don't want to say bad, but much more ineffective when Francisco Alvarez wasn't his catcher. In 35 and a third innings, he had a 2.29 ERA with Francisco Alvarez as his battery mate, a 486 OPS against, 55 strikeouts to just 14 walks. We saw him get a little erratic in DC. Alvarez walked over. I don't know what Alvarez says in any of these meetings. I wish I did, but it seems like he just has the calming words of all catchers. And after that, Diaz locked in, struck out the next 3. I think that is going to be the biggest thing for him going forward. If he can stay healthy, having Francisco Alvarez back there, I think is just, these two connect. I know Alvarez connects with pretty much every pitcher and they all sing his praises, but I think with Edwin Diaz, it's been such a mental battle in addition to being a physical battle that any edge he can get in that department, I think, will be so helpful to him. So Edwin Diaz, I'm hoping he has a better next month, because the Mets are going to need him not only to lock up saves, but to pitch more often than he has and possibly get more than 3 outs, which down the stretch last year, he definitely did. I always think about that last regular season home game at Citi Field, Mets-Phillies 2-1 game. Diaz comes in for 6 outs. It was his most important outing of the year, coming off that really bad Diamondbacks trip where he locked in, threw his fastball a ton. From that point to the end of the season and the playoffs, Diaz looked like Diaz, and I still think that guy's somewhere in there if he can get over this mental hurdle and this weird leg injury he's been dealing with. So Edwin Diaz, you are my bet to bounce back.
I like that. And the Mets need that guy.
So bad.
So if we did the other...
Oh, you want to do the other
award,
side? Most disappointing?
Yeah, he would be my answer.
Yeah?
And it's because I'm tabulating something right now, just something silly.
Carving out the numbers.
Yeah, I'm just doing and it's not even that big of a deal. So here's the reason why he was my most disappointing. And I'm not saying he's not about to bounce back, because I love it, because the Mets need him.
Yeah.
And he's nasty still. It's because the pressure that he's put on the rest of the bullpen.
Yes.
Apart from the starting rotation not going super deep, his lack of efficiency and ability to bounce back, and whether it's, injury or not injury, effectiveness, he just hasn't been able to go out there as much. He hasn't been able to pitch that often. It's just a little bit disappointing, because you want him to dominate. The guy that we saw in 23, or was it
2022?
20? Man, it's so long. 2022. That's so long ago.
3 years?
2022. The guy we saw there was pure dominance at all times. Unfair to want him to be that guy, but we want you to be close to that guy, okay? He's thrown, let's see, how many innings does he have this
12.
year? 12 innings, all right? In 12 innings, he's thrown 223 pitches.
Damn.
So
That's a stat. Oh, my God. That's almost 20 pitches per outing.
Okay. Max Kranick has thrown 20 and a third innings. He's thrown 272 pitches.
I might have to swipe that and credit you. That's a crazy fucking stat in just terms of efficiency. Well, we mentioned Kranick's not walking anybody. He's just throwing bullets. Strikes.
Now, Kranick's on the extreme end of just dominating, giving up, a few hits, but he's, coming out pounding, whip, unreal. And Diaz is on the other end of that scale. And that pressure at the back end of the bullpen, when you don't, you're not available a lot of the times, and then you push your guys that are underneath you to throw more innings all the time. Understanding that he had the hip thing, where they have to they're still monitoring him and allowing him to be healthy, and they should. It's the most important thing. But when he's been out there, he hasn't been efficient enough. I'm going to say this from a a mid reliever guy. So a guy that, so when you have a shutdown closer shutting down the ninth inning, that usually takes pressure off of you. It's so easy because you're like, all I got to do is get these 3 outs, and then Diaz could come in, or he could clean it up for me. You know, I've had the luxury of having really good guys pitch behind me, from Andrew Bailey in Oakland.
Wow,
to,
throwback.
Yeah, to Drew Storen when he was there, to Rafael Soriano, Tyler Clippard. I mean, we've had Addison Reed, like guys that would pitch behind me. It's a savior to have when you have a dominant guy that can come in and clean up for you. It takes pressure off of you. I think Diaz has done 0 of that this year, and maybe even added a little bit of pressure at guys because he can only come in a clean situation. He's only going to pitch once every day or 2 or 3. And so he has been my most disappointing. Still been very good. Hasn't blown a save. His strikeout numbers are out of this world, but our expectations for him to be a dominant guy, he was the best closer in baseball, him and Clase in 22. He's not on that level anymore right now. He can clearly get back to there, but they need him to be at least, in that top 5, top 10. And he's not there right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I don't know if 22 Diaz is ever going to be truly back, just in terms of where his velocity's at and confidence and all that stuff. But we mentioned so much that things are going to have to change bullpen strategy-wise going forward if the Mets are going to survive, these next few weeks. Diaz is a massive factor in that because he just hasn't been used all that much, and they've been protecting him, and they're going to be in these late and close games if they're going to be struggling with runners in scoring position. This is where you test him and see what's going to be the storyline, I guess, going forward for him. And if he's going to have another one of these moments where he hits rock bottom, or if he just has a nice season, and if last year was just an anomaly. But I think that they've kind of rode the middle with Edwin Diaz through April. And I'm hoping that Alvarez coming back and him having a lighter workload in the first month, these can be contributing reasons in a positive light rather than a negative light. But that remains to be seen. And you are right that there is pressure put on other guys like Kranick, like Brazoban, like Garrett to get their outs and get through their innings because they know no one's going to come to save them, especially late in a close game. So the pressure is on for Edwin Diaz, but that's the pressure that comes with being the highest paid closer of all time, with being the guy that had the best relief pitching season in Mets history. This is pressure that was earned from prior performance, and I'm hoping that Edwin Diaz can still be that guy for us because, like I said, in September of last year, in the playoffs of last year, he was that guy, and I still think he can be. So I guess he's kind of, he's both my answers, I guess, at this point. I'm kind of with you that it is. You look at the numbers, and they're, you like 20 strikeouts in 12 innings. You like 7 for 7 in save ops, 15 strikeout per 9 rate. But at the same time, it is disappointing. You wanted Diaz to come out firing this season, and so far it's been a lot of the same. Confidence issues, scary saves, and injury concerns, which is not what Mets fans wanted to see.
Nailed it.
That is our April award show. That is an hour and 20-minute episode, Jerry. Jeez, my goodness. What a first month of Mets baseball. I think we'll wrap it up there because we have been yapping for quite a while. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, leave a like on our YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening on a podcast app, leave us a review. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening, Spotify, all that good stuff. We appreciate it. It all goes a long way. Check out drinkfieldofdreamswhiskey.com right now. Get yourself a Father's Day present for your dad. And let's go Mets, baby.
Let's go Mets.
Turn this ship around. Let's get the big hit. Someone come through. I'm begging.
Unhung. Whoops.
Unhung. You might be the most hung right now, Jerry. Come on.
Jerry and Charlie, thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next time, where we'll be back.
Station.